besides a Tesla being an EV, an electronic car, which means electronic charging stations, right? But the other aspect of Tesla and other manufacturers are all working on this is making the car be able to drive by itself. According to what I saw, there aren't fully self-driving cars yet. That hasn't been approved for the most part around here yet, but it's definitely something coming. Right now, the Teslas do have features where it could drive by itself, but it's insistent that you have to be Omed al Gabav. You have to be conscious, awake, and at the steering wheel to to have the ability to monitor it. But they are talking about having fully self-driving cars where you could just be a passenger and you plug in the coordinates of where you're going and you sit back and enjoy the ride. Your chauffeur being AI, artificial intelligence.
Tesla doesn't even have so much faith in it yet either. If your hands aren't on the steering wheel a certain amount, they disable the feature remotely. Okay, well, as someone just added, is the description of where they're up to by Tesla is if they don't feel there's a sensor, it doesn't feel your hands on the wheel, it automatically disables it. I'm not sure what that means. Disables it. It means the next time you try to use it, it just won't work.
Yeah, for future reference. But artificial intelligence is definitely something in so many different areas. But what I want to talk about today, just for practicality, is in cars. And AI has been here, and there's so many things that it already does. Many of them we don't even realize. But I want to talk about specifically cars and the use of AI in cars. Now, I want to deal with one basic scenario. I want to show major halachic foundational points that will lead to understanding the case. And we'll try to talk about it. A, because most of the technology is not really here yet. And B, because this is a topic which is very hard to pin down practically. I'm not sure I'm ready to give a clear, practical, halachic conclusion. But to discuss this topic, I think is a very fascinating issue. And it deals with many real foundational, yesodistic ideas in halacha. Now let's play out a scenario. Okay? More and more with cars, even again without Tesla, just simple cars already been upgraded, that if a car comes along your side, your blind spot, there already are sensors that notice it, flash, and do different things.
Right.
That's simple. Right? Maybe not so simple. My cars don't have that feature, but my cars are a little bit older. But okay, they have these features.
Blind spot.
Recently,
one day Yeshiva's cars will have it.
Yes.
Well,
personally,
cars are going to be.
Personally, I've driven cars with these sensors, these side sensors, and I spent the week of the Chasana. I was in New York. I was using a car like that, the whole week, and within a week span, you just stop paying attention to it because they're not absolutely accurate. Sometimes there is a car on their side, sometimes there isn't, and I wasn't doing an official scientific study, but just I used it. I used the car. I think in general it's a mila because a few times when someone was actually there and I noticed it because of it, but they're not perfect, and your senses can sometimes dole these out. Okay, but what we're talking about is, let's say there's a feature in a car which the car really does drive itself. It's not just a sensor which warns you about people, but it's fully driving itself. And let's say, unfortunately, there are situations where, oh my gosh, a car swerving into you, coming right at you, and you have to make that split-second decision what to do. To swerve, not to swerve, to go straight. What's your judgment in that split-second challenging situation? Now, really the argument pro, in general, using more AI in the world is they think it'll make the world safer. Which it could be in terms of distracted drivers. Unfortunately, there are times. It just was a horrific crash in Lakewood, the Jewish community, where I think a woman driving a car had some medical episode, and it caused a head-on collision. And well, it's on, 2 people died. So if you have a system, getting into a car is a dangerous thing. I saw the Sefer, even discuss the whole concept in Halacha of driving cars. Driving a car. Remember my Rebbe Reb Henoch, years ago, when he was first learned to drive a car, he said, "Okay, you know how it is. If anything which you need a specialized teacher to do, and it's not a yeshiva where they give you tuition breaks, right? Anything you need a specialized teacher, they charge an arm and a leg. So to driving school, they can charge basically whatever they want. Okay, you want to use our car, you need to use a car for the test, you need some lessons, so always rack up the price." Remember, Reb Henoch said something very insightful. He said that, for the price to teach me how to drive was overpriced. But for the lesson that my driver teacher gave me, so before he entered the car, I realized this machine could kill. He says that was priceless. It's very true. A car is a dangerous situation a person putting themselves in. Now, we're not getting the whole share about that. At the same time, you have to live, and this is practically a very normal way how to live. So, of course, we utilize cars, but it has to be utilized in a responsible way, smart way. But at the same time, cars obviously can be dangerous, and utilizing a car in these situations, a person could be distracted, a person could have a medical episode. They're split-second decisions, and that's why they push. If you have an AI car and it's driven, so the computer just works. Obviously, the other side with it is okay, but they could also have bugs and slowdowns, and who knows what could happen. So you always want human element important to be there. Now, the case I'm talking about again is, let's say there's going to be some type of crash, and there's a split-second decision to be made. So if the car has an override, okay, then you can make that decision. But if the car is just self-driving, and it's going to make that decision, so you have to know what's the right decision in these situations. Very not simple. It's a question which the AI developers themselves are struggling with, what to program into the cars. And what are they programming them based on? Are they programming them based on halacha? No.
Probability.
And probability?
Algorithm.
I'll get to in a moment. So really, it definitely lends to challenging halachic situations. Your car does damage in that situation. Are you responsible to pay? Not responsible to pay. You drove it, but you didn't program it. Or did you? Some of them can be sometimes the car could have choices that you program, okay, this is how I want to react. But all these scenarios, probably not. Yes?
If your vehicle makes a mistake 3 times, do you have to sell it and get a different vehicle?
Yeah, you get a new car,
No,
get a new cow.
Your car becomes a muad.
But
Goes moo.
I saw one of the very, very interesting aspects. So the first most basic shayla, okay, there's going to be some type of crash. How do you avoid it? What to do? But the real best case where AI plays out, and very, very interestingly, is an issue they call it the trolley problem. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with it. The trolley problem puts forth the following scenario. You have a trolley, some type of craft, car, bus, train, that on the path it's going right now is going to slam into, let's put it, 5 people. If you let things go the way it is right now, there's no question about it. It's in the path. 5 people can't. They're stuck in that car on the tracks. There's no way out. What you could do potentially, you're controlling, let's say, a lever. Right? Obviously, there's different variables of how you can make this a trolley problem. But you could control a lever which will shift that trolley, that train, onto a different track, and then it will only kill 1 person. But you have a choice. Should I stop this car from killing 5 people by killing 1 person? What should one do in such a scenario? On this particular case, there are many, many philosophical opinions talking about this case, but this is unfortunately a very practical case when you're programming AI. What would you do in a situation like this?
That applies to a human as well.
Correct. Correct.
So there's no difference.
You're right, 100%. We could really have this discussion pushing aside AI. What should you do in a case like this? I'll show you in a second. I think this could be a major shayla that is going on to a certain extent on a daily basis in Israel. There's a missile coming. If the path of the missile where it's going on right now will hit, we can't stop it. It's going to hit over there. The only thing we could do is tilt the path of that missile, and it'll hit over there. It'll do less damage, but it's for sure going to do damage in both spots. What does one do? Yes, this particular issue we're talking about in the context of AI, but it's something which people can make this. Humans could be making decisions about this if they're conductors on trains, where they have the power to do this. If they are air traffic controllers, if they're in charge of the missile defense, the state of Israel. There are so many scenarios where these cases play out, but artificial intelligence makes it even scarier because you're pre-programming it. What to do in that case? So in a certain sense, it's scarier, but it's also, okay, so let's figure out, is there a clear halachic psak, what to do in such a scenario? Yes?
First of all, AI is programmed by humans, so it is some other human being
Correct.
programming their thoughts or their decision-making process. But the other thing, which we alluded to earlier, is that if I make the decision to pull that lever and change the train so it only hits 1 person as opposed to 5, it's my liability.
Very good point.
Liability. If it's the AI, I have absolved myself of liability, and I can now go to the car manufacturer and blame them or sue them instead.
This goes on today.
Right, Berger, very good point.
When there's
We'll get to that.
crashes, a lot of times the deep pocket is the manufacturer,
Right.
and they're sued even though there's nothing wrong with the car. This happened to Toyota a couple of times, where I forgot what they said the car did not stop, and the problem was that the person operating the car confused the accelerator with the brake pedal, and especially
Unfortunately, yeah.
in older people, this
Right.
is very common. Okay,
It's an operator malfunction.
Yeah.
Mechanical malfunction.
yeah, and they had to prove in court that there was nothing wrong with the car.
Yes,
Yeah.
very good point. So if it could be for that, if they had a system, where AI would, depending on, the age of people, realizing that accelerating and brake,
But now you're going-
sense of that,
going
that would save
straight
lives, for
Right.
sure.
There are 3 different parts of the outcome. You have to analyze the ethics of the situation, the liability, and the punishment, penalty.
Yes,
3 different answers.
yes, potentially.
You have a fraction of a second to make that judgment call.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I would like to go through halachically this broad shaila, and we'll see what we could do with this to program our AIs and our Teslas. If Elon Musk calls us tomorrow, what to do? we'll have the answers. Maybe.
I'm sure he's calling us.
Yeah. So, the first two basic ideas.
For you.
Huh?
For you.
He got him on the phone, not bad. However, I knew he had big connections. Now, the first two Marmakomos, I didn't have a chance to put them on the sheets, but pretty basic, famous Gemaras. There's two Gemaras, really, but I chose the second one. Not yet on the sheets. The Gemaras, both in Sanhedrin and Pesachim, talk about the three cardinal sins, which are Yahar Gal Yavar. Sanhedrin discusses Avodah Zarah, Gilui Rayos, but also Sanhedrin and Gemara Pesachim talk about Yahar Gal Yavar by killing somebody. That the halacha is that if someone would unfortunately threaten you, your life, unless you kill that person, take a gun, either you kill that person or we'll shoot you. The Gemara says a famous logic. The Gemara derives the source of this from a pure logic. They don't even quote a pasuk for it, which means it's stronger than logic, stronger than a pasuk. The Gemara says, how do you know your blood is any redder than his? My chaz is damididach samach tfei. And therefore the halacha is you're not allowed to kill that person. You have to bite the bullet yourself versus chas v'shalom killing another Jew.
That was a common question in the Holocaust. You could exchange someone for someone who's in.
Okay, I'm going to get to that case too. That might be a little different. Hold on. It might be a little different. So the first classic case, I'm going to emphasize the point based on I see the good questions I was asked, is could you actively go and kill somebody versus choosing not to and getting killed yourself? Halacha is that's one of the three cardinal sins. You have to give up your life. Now we'll see nuances within this case.
You are allowed to kill the person who's threatening you, though.
What? Yeah. Right. The person who's threatening me, just the threat alone makes him a rodef. Halacha is if someone's trying to kill you, the halacha is you could take the first step and kill them. This is why, obviously, Jews in Israel have 100% right, halachically, to make any type of preemptive strike on somebody that is threatening to kill them. Now, world reaction, we know what happens when the Jews do it. But halachically speaking, 100%, the din of a rodef, if someone's chasing after you to kill you, then 100% you have the right to kill them. And, halacha makes it very interesting. It's not even, okay. You could have, Moshe has a famous case of one child endangering another child. That could also be viewed as a rodef. Very fascinating. But that's one halakhic element. I have to put down three major elements before we get to talk about anything. Number two, there is also a famous Gemara in Bava Metzia, Perek Yizon Neshach, Samach Beis. Gemara there talks about two people in the desert, and there's one bottle of water. I have a bottle of water. If I drink this bottle of water, I'll make it through and survive the rest of the day, walking through the desert. But the other guy won't. If we split the water, we'll both live a little bit longer, but we're not going to make it out. If I give him the water, he'll make it out, I won't. What should one do? So there is an opinion there, Ben Batura, that how can you see the death of your friend? Split the water, and you'll both live a little longer.
That's the democratic approach.
Rabbi Akiva argues and says, your life comes first, and therefore you go and drink the water, save yourself. Unfortunately, the other person would pass.
That's the Republican approach.
Now, okay, we got our political commentary here. Now, the simple point, what's the distinction between case one and case two? In case one, you were actively killing your friend. In case 2, what were you doing? Twofold. First of all, you weren't actively killing your friend. You didn't give him a bottle of water, which could have saved him. What the act that you're doing when you drink a bottle of water, that's not an act of killing anybody. That's an act of saving yourself. So that we pass on halacha like Rabbi Akiva, and you're 100% allowed to save yourself, even if the consequence of that is your friend passes away. So right now you already see there's 2 basic qualifications. There's an act of killing somebody, Maisa Hariga, and there's an act of saving oneself, Maisa Hatzalah. 2 halakhically separate points. Now let's do a third case, which was actually brought up before. This is not in the Bavli, but it's in the Yerushalmi. And this is on your sheets. It's Yerushalmi in Trumos. It says, Tani Siyos b'nei Adam shayim mahalchim b'derech. So a group of people traveling, Pagalem Gayim, bad Gentiles, met them, Vamru tnu lanu echem mikem v'nara goso v'mrav arei anu nahargam l'skulam. You have a choice. Give us one. We're bloodthirsty. We want to kill one person. Give us one of you, and we'll let everyone else go. If not, we're going to fight and kill all of you. So the Yerushalmi paskins, afilu kum neragim lo yimsu nefesh achas miYisrael. Even if it means everyone dying, you can't go and give away one person. However, continues over there, Yerushalmi, a machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Yichel lahem echad. Let's say they name the person in the group they want. The first case just said, give us one anonymous person. So halacha is you can't give that one anonymous person. The Yerushalmi changes one variable. Let's say they ask for a person by his name. We want that person. If you don't give us that person, we'll kill you all. The Gemara, the Yerushalmi's case is Kagon Sheva ben Bichri. What you'll see from Navi, he was somebody practically who was more than Malchus. It might have been Chayiv Misa. There was Chayiv Misa. So the halacha is Amar Shimon ben Lakish, Vushi Chayiv Misa Kashiva ben Bichri. Reish Lakish says you could give over in that scenario that person. He's a marked man. He happens to be someone who's Chayiv Misa. You could give him over. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Alpha Pi She'eno Chayiv Misa Kashiva ben Bichri. Still, you give a person over. Very interesting machlokas. Reish Lakish's opinion is I'm allowed to give over one marked person that they ask for only in a scenario where that person happens to be Chayiv Misa. The case of the Gemara said could go in Sheva ben Bichri. Sheva ben Bichri was someone who was Chayiv Misa. There's more of a Malchus. So in such a case, you give over the marked man because he's Chayiv Misa anyway. By giving him over, you're going to save the rest of the group. Right. So you'd be allowed to do that. But Rabbi Yochanan takes it even further. Rabbi Yochanan says if they specify one person, so saying, look, this one person is what's holding back everyone else from being saved. You would be allowed, be careful with the words I use, to give over that person. I'd say you have to, but you'll be allowed to give over that person, according to Rabbi Yochanan.
Check your IDs or whatever. They're going to figure out who the person is anyways.
Correct.
You don't know they're not going to kill the other guys anyways.
Right. Now, these scenarios are a very good point. We're assuming these negotiations are done in good faith, like a good Jewish negotiator, right? We assume, the things are being done in good faith.
With people who are asking to kill you.
I guess you're against any hostage deals and ceasefire deals, well, in this room. But I won't tell you to check the news.
So we have some young people here, and something happens in the classroom, and the Rebbe says, "Who did it?"
I ran into that case.
The Chavetz Chaim talks about that case, but for different reasons.
I ran into that case when I was like in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I was in chess club, and unfortunately some kid had an accident in class, and the teacher said, "Nobody's leaving until you tell me who it was that did it," which I thought was the most despicable thing I'd ever seen in my life. But you see it happening in the real world.
Yeah, people single people out. So you see this Yerushalmi, this one variable, once they mark the person with that that definitely changes it. Shalos, how far does it change it? And what's very interesting, already over here, is a certain amount of unclarity. Why? The Rambam paschals halacha over here, like Reish Lakish, that it's limited to giving over a person who has a chiv misa on his head. But the Meiri and other poskim, Meiri a lot of times goes with the Rambam Shita, but not here. And the others say no, you could even expand it. Once they single out one person, you could give over that person. Now, as some Mefarshim speak out, they have a case where this did happen. I want to quote the names properly. If you look in the next paragraph, I thought I saw it there. Basically, this one's played out, and they gave over two people, and they said those two people, mamish, up there in Shemayim, they get a big schus. They, those people themselves agreed. Look, well, they'll kill us too, and they'll save everybody else. So obviously, if you're that carbon that is being killed on behalf of others, that's a big deal. It's a big schus, and they get olam haba. But Lamaisa, halacha, already in this type of case, is really a little foggy, not so clear what to do. But you see how all this is a good backdrop. These type of cases where you're really judging, and it's the toughest decisions, lives for lives. We could have a discussion in a moment. Are we actively killing people, sometimes behind the wheel, with these decisions? Or programming a decision? Is it saving people? Well, if someone's going to die anyway, what's the din of that person? Can you save them for others? Can you switch them for others? That brings us to the Chazon Ish. I must get to this Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish is critical, and it's an amazing piece. Think about the fact that the Chazon Ish wrote this piece. I don't know if he wrote this piece back in Europe before he was discovered, or already in Eretz Yisrael. But unfortunately, this is a practical shaila in Eretz Yisrael. The Chazon Ish is in the middle of your page. It's in Yeridea Siman Samach Tes. I also saw it quoted in another spot. There's an arrow, there's a missile, projectile, that's going to kill a lot of people. He dramatizes it. There's a missile about to hit one city, be a major hit, and kill hundreds of people. But if I move it, where it's going to land, it's for sure going to kill one other person. If I don't do anything, what should one do? So he has two big steps. Let's do the first step. This is not comparable to the case we just did in Yerushalmi, where you give over one person to be killed. When you give over that one person to be killed, that's a cruel act of killing someone. When you give over people, you're not actively saving others. You're just cruelly giving over this person to be killed. Or like in your case, you're cruelly telling on that kid. So it's not that this act of giving over the guy directly kills. Ella, on Mikra Garin, just the case in the deal that was set up, right? It's just tied together by you giving over this one person, other people will be saved. But you're not innately doing an act to save people. In contrast to the case of the projectile, so if you move, able to move that missile, that you're doing, you're saving people. You're actively doing an action, a movement, which is saving people. Okay, so I have a question, killing one or many. In a certain sense, Chazon Ish argues that this is much better than the case we just read in Yerushalmi. There you're directly giving over one person for Misa. That action has to be defined as an act of Hariga. You're participating in the killing of somebody. As opposed to over here, what am I doing when I'm tilting that missile? I'm doing an act of saving people. The action I'm doing, tilting that missile, is an act of saving. We know from the Rabbi Akiva case, when I drink that water, what am I doing? An action of saving myself. Unfortunately, there's a consequence, a person's dying. But the action could be labeled not as an act of killing somebody, but an action of saving someone. Saving myself. Hold on. That's one way to look at it. Oh, so that's why I was looking in the wrong spot. He's the one who quotes it. Although Lunis and Peopleis, those are two people. That there was a situation where these two Jews with, I assume, Greek names, Lunis and Pupis, that they were killed to save other Jews. They said they reached the highest madrigas of Gan Eden, people couldn't reach them. So, okay, do we view it like that? The small amount of karbanos saved so many people. Miu hachagara. Chazon Ish says it's not that simple though, because over here, in a certain sense, it's also worse. It's better, but it's also worse. The heart be a dying, because when you tilt that missile, now the missile's going in the other direction, and it's killing the other people. We only find halakhic precedent, you're allowed to give someone over, but you're not killing the person. You're making him walk the plank. You're giving him over. You're not killing him. Here, when you tilt the missile, you're killing those other people. The heart be dying, after delaying the harag. Chazon Ish ends off, Miu Tzarech. I'm not sure. So the Chazon Ish very much gives a fascinating scenario. Here's a tzad, perhaps one would be allowed. This is directly talking about the trolley problem. Could you tilt that runaway car or a train to the small people? Chazon Ish, here's a tzad. Maybe you could. Maybe you could. But he's not sure. Because it's worse than the precedent that we have in the Yerushalmi, where there you're just giving over the person. It could definitely be viewed, on one hand, the Chazon Ish says, as an act of saving versus an act of killing. But at the same time, you are that other person, you are actively killing them. Now, I saw a very nice little variable of Usher Weiss talks about this case, talks about this Chazon Ish, and he throws in another factor, which really is the Israeli missile defense system, is you're not, it's one thing if Israel could get in and probably do this type of stuff too, if they could cyber attack the mechanism that's driving the rocket. So that would mean that they're directly controlling that rocket now. The Iranians shot the missile, but Israel cyber attacked. They figured out the path, and they themselves tilt the rocket. That's really the Chazon Ish's type case. But what happens if you have a shield? A shield is a little different. Is the rocket is being propelled by the bad guys. Iran fired the rocket, and Israel's shooting up a Patriot missile, whatever, slingshots, defense systems. So that missile is tilting the course of it. But that's less direct than you controlling the system to go from here to there, pulling the lever by the trolley for the trolley to go this way versus that way. So Usher Weiss said that's a little bit better in the case the Chazon Ish was talking about, and there might be more of a tzad in that case to permit it, because it's an indirect action that you're doing. L'maisa, the Chazon Ish wasn't ready to take a clear position on this. There are others that argue, and this you see, one precedent is with Chaim Brisker, but others that there's a big difference between actively killing somebody or what you call sheva al tasa. And some argue, that since Eliezer on your bottom of your sheets, a chance to read it inside, pushes for the idea of sheva al tasa. So for example, if a car is going in that path where it's going to hit those 5 people versus there, if I interject, then I'm making a decision, I'm doing something to kill that one person. If I don't do anything, those 5 people are dying, but it wasn't from me. I was passive. And sometimes the right decision in these cases, since Eliezer argues, really on the precedence of others before and others after, that look, in these type of situations, who are we to play God and decide things? Let it run its course. You can't take an action. You can't make a decisive decision. That's the argument of sheva al tasa. So I saw in this book, the Piash Shmuel heard that part of the reason why the Chazon Ish wrote his piece was to negate that argument. It's not so simple for a person to just claim, look, I'm just going to be passive, I'm not going to do anything, and let God run its course. No. In Halacha, there could be a tzad that you should take the action, even where you're directly switching the tracks, and it's going to kill another person. But maybe that's not viewed halachically as an act of killing, but rather more like the Rabbi Akiva case, in the bottle of water, an act of saving. Obviously, lo aleinu, we don't want to ever be in a situation where we have to make such decisions. But to me, I think a share like this, I think you said it well before, is it shows this is mamash nothing new. We quoted Gemaras in the Bavli and Yerushalmi. Okay, Chazon Ish probably wrote this piece 100 years ago. But all these factors, the newfound philosophers are debating what's the right thing to do ethically, law-wise. They did a survey. Tesla, all these car companies did surveys. What would you want to do in that type of situation? So yeah, people driving cars said they wanted to save the driver, and people walking in the street or in the other cars said we should save the pedestrian. Yeah, okay. Everyone's looking for their own best interest. Well, Halacha, how do you decide this? This is beyond human grasp. This is, okay, what does the Torah divine? And it's not so simple sometimes to define what is the clear Torah decision in a case like this. But definitely the halachic precedents definitely are. It takes more than artificial intelligence or a supercomputer to figure out what the right thing is. It takes an Adam Gadol to really paskin and judge and sleep on such a decision. Try to sleep on such a decision. Very not pashut. But I think the big takeaway is artificial intelligence definitely cannot in the Jewish world will never take over Torah intelligence. And Torah intelligence comes from a person who imbibes and studies and works to understand what the Torah precedent is in all cases. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Yes. I hope you didn't do it tonight.
Rabbi Kerr, how do you apply this
Yes.
to soldiers going to try to save hospitals? You're putting others' lives, putting yourself in life potential jeopardy. Possible to save
I cringe. I cringe at these things. And it's interesting. You see the Rabbanim don't usually get involved in these things. They know Israeli government is making these decisions. You know, every step of the way, what's been going on in the past 8 months is a lot of perspective view and outline all these things. It's very scary.
Yeah. It's another fact. Is that too? Is if you don't go into rescue soldiers,
No one's gonna want to be a soldier.
nobody will be a soldier.
Correct.
So sometimes you do lose more
Correct.
because you save so many more
Right.
that would never be involved.
And similarly, you have question of the whole
Free the hostage movement. Are they taking that into account? They want their family members
Right.
Their
safe.
family members
Right.
coming
But-
home no matter what. They don't care what else.
And in answer to your question about AI, someone's programming it, I'm going to take a different approach with you. I
But
think
here,
it's like a
every time
firing
a
squad.
teacher would.
You're killing
the youngest
somebody.
daughter was-
There are 5 guys shooting, but only one has
Who's
a
talking?
bullet.
They're in trouble.
Yeah.
My daughter would
So
also.
you don't know.
Sorry.
AI.
So
She
hated to see her. She hated to see the other kids get
So you don't know who's putting in that
That's
piece
beautiful.
that's going to make
See, she was
it
more of the meetups.
to kill that other person.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope you don't need that umbrella. It seems pretty quiet out
Oh,
there.
yes. Whenever someone would call you to the school, like, you know,
It's a whole consortium
that you
put these
put
AI
put
together,
together,
and then the final product comes out as a result of all of this.
Right, but it's not the real making
She's never said it.
Thank you.
But she always.
Even in that last
even
story,
she always found something people think.
Right.
That's how you ask.
You don't
Tully,
know.
this is what he asked Tully. Tully will never.
Yeah, no, I understand,
But
but
I
about
figure
the-
you're not on that side of it.
you're not
What
saying
you said toward the end about
what I said in terms of
About
the legal aspect of it. If I make the decision to swerve this way instead of that way, or to apply the race, or to not to apply the race, it was my decision. Now,
Thank
I
you,
will-
Rabbi Kier. Rabbi Kier, thank you.
Thank you.
And if I made a bad decision, then
But that one got you.
Fair enough, but I get that, but for myself,
if
we also will go the
the
other way,
car
right?
makes the
Yeah.
decision,
That
the
was no
car
longer.
was
and
programmed by,
So
there could be
now,
100 different
now the
people
economy's
who
not
are all
safe. That's
involved in
not-
programming the
right?
car.
So how do you,
But
What can I get you?
how do you deal with,
What are you looking for?
how do you deal with this one? Right?
it was still one
Two exactly conflicting,
conglomerate entity.
The reality,
exactly
reality
conflicting
is,
You
things.
can't,
You
you're
also
not
see
gonna
cases
say,
brought
he's
down
the one
about
who-
right, but the reality
if
is,
the Goyim
more
kidnapped
people
someone
kill
and pulled the
people in car
grandson.
accidents than us.
Right, that we've talked about.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
But we don't.
So it is somewhat related.
We don't, you know, we
Let me
don't,
keep this case.
Yeah.
So
No,
any
we're-
information
true.
discussed,
where
case
the
where you have
Tesla
three,
concept, the AI
and there's only enough
concept
water for
becomes
two.
very valuable.
It's interesting. I do
We've
remember
already
the
got
variables. Might have been like
more recent
Yeah.
cars have all
That
the
gives you a little
side
more
sensors,
insight
so
to this.
Right.
It doesn't totally
if you're
answer.
trying
that. That means, right, in the routine part, you sure you can save
to
yourself.
the car in your blind
And then the
spot.
question is,
If
what
you
to do
split
about
Split the
the
water
batteries.
and the other two guys aren't gonna make it, or do
Yeah.
you do all
Sensor
for one?
Right,
and then-
right.
And then
Right.
one
Talk
of them
about
makes
that.
it, and
I
how
mean,
you
Might
also,
even be our
to
shit
an
back
extent,
tomorrow.
to an extent, that's not
drive
really
lot.
let's call it a
Because
scalable
what
problem.
if
Because let's say you,
you're
in the
starting
end,
to get
you have a group of
aroused?
100 people with enough water for
If there's a
99.
sensor
Well,
that
I mean,
sees your
all you
eyes
have to do is each
are
person
droopy,
gives up 199,
so
and now
kind of
No, no,
above
everybody
but
has the
in
same amount of water.
cases, If
And
you
they
do that,
do
more
have
than
it.
but
more
they
than
also
one's
have
gonna
it
die.
where
No,
they'll
but
have the
because
brakes.
if you have enough water for
That's
100
very good
people,
point. I'll take another angle.
But the other side
And the
is,
whole other
if
topic
you do
we
have
discussed
the blind side,
is there
you
is Shiloh's
can
about
never drive a
selling
regular car.
who comes first.
because
Because you're so reliant on the driver. Even though you say.
No, let's say I'm not involved.
Oh, right.
I'm
Triage.
You're relying on
Triage.
someone else
Right.
doing
That's
that
the
job for
question.
you.
No, you're
Men and
They
women,
go with this.
all these things.
Our heads.
And that's why it's impossible to separate this program for artificial intelligence, all the variables. Wow.
The first thing, is it artificial intelligence in the first place, or is it just fancy programming? Because intelligence implies it's making a decision, not that it's just programmed to do this every time.
Right.
So, you know, there are all the systems in place. My car, I can set cruise control, and if I get too close to the car, but it's on the brakes. So, is that intelligence, or is it just pre-programmed?
Right.
Right.
That's more basic.
With the new AI, it's got a limited capacity to learn based on what was put into it. But at the end of the day, it
Right.
still
Real AI is
has,
actually learning. It's learning
Right.
from other
but it
things.
still does have its limits of what it can learn.
And of course, this is the inherent biases, but like
Give me
you,
a break.
it's helping you, and you say you get immune to it, and you start to ignore it, but
Microsoft.
you don't really, because I mean, many times my car has saved me, like it starts going beep, 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 and I see, oh, too close, I hit the brakes.
Right.
You know, so,
It's
you know,
It's there.
it's very
let's say
and
before people
it's,
were
and you say like, well, should you do what you want to do or what the computer wants to do? It's proven in almost all cases where there's airplane collisions and the TCAS,
it's allegedly
I forgot what it's called,
encrypted and
collision
never goes to
avoidance.
Microsoft.
Says to one plane go up, if the other plane go down, but the other plane says, no, I know better, I'm gonna go down, and they hit each other. If they would have listened to the TCAS, they would have avoided the collision in almost every single case. So the fact we want to override it, it's probably better to let it do what it knows it's supposed to do, because it's probably safer in 99% of cases.
The whole
It's a few points that came to my mind as I was.
Except for the rare
2
case
days
where
later, if you
one
forget
pub
something
says
that
go
you
down
want
and
to do,
stop.
cut with it, so you want to look
Well,
at it.
that reminds me of another joke.
Screenshot.
Another joke. There's a guy gets in a taxi, the taxi driver starts going through all the red lights in the city.
Good man. I knew him as Stubborn's father. I didn't realize he's your neighbor.
Yeah.
Really, I'm his
Not
neighbor.
Mr. Schultz?
Huh?
He's a good man.
No. Do you live in the neighborhood?
180th Street, yeah.
What is it? What are you doing?
So, I'm a member of Basement Anthem, but I come here with my son often.
Very nice. So, you attribute your sense of humor to your mother or your father?
My father.
Because you didn't come from him. Yeah, but your mother talked and you attributed that to your father.
My father contributed, but she's the one I actually popped out. So, wait, just one, it reminds me of another joke where you just said, the guy gets into a taxi, the taxi driver starts going through all the red lights in town. The guy says, what are you doing? He goes, don't worry, my brother does this all the time, it's fine. And then the guy comes to a green light and he stops. He goes, why are you stopping? He goes, my brother might be coming the other way. So, so he said, so, you know, if you, it's a joke, but if you take it to the logic, if you start going against things, you're going to mess up the whole system.
What do you do for a living?
The funny thing
I'm a
is,
teacher, first grade.
Where?
Fulford Elementary School.
you get a Boston
It's
driver.
down on
New York
18th Avenue
driver,
and 160.
Uh-huh. How long have you been living down here?
24. Well, here or in Florida in general?
Oh, let's say here. Let's call it here.
I came down to Florida in 95. I've been in this neighborhood since 2001. I moved into my house. I got married in 2000, and I lived like a mile away in 14 in Miami Gardens. And then a year after that, we moved into our
You're a
house. and I've
newcomer to
been
the neighborhood.
there.
Welcome.
It's the-
We have this
When I
year.
moved into my block, I was the first Jew. And he moved in, and we have 5 or 6.
Oh.
Very nice.
You know, they say, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your neighbors.
Pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friends.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that. Well, we have this year every Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. I hope you enjoy it. You're welcome to come.
In yeshiva.
Are you going to Israel for the summer with yeshiva? So what are you planning
I
to do
think
this
we're
year?
going to extend into July. The whole July.
There we
The
go.
whole July?
I'd say the whole July, but into July.
Okay. Okay,
And the 4th be with us.
very good.
I think that was Johnny Lacey's joke.
I'm away July 4th. So that one.
Okay. It's funny, so many people keep track of our shares. So says, right here, you can do so many unlocking personalities at this year. Gosh. An outsider. Well, just somebody in Vegas. So, yeah.
You going that way?
Whichever way.
Which way you live? Which way you going, Tim? You said
Today,
you parked all the way on the
we
other side?
parked
Park
in the
there?
front parking lot.
Okay.
You want me to put that back?
Now with Tesla, there are other issues which people are a little more directly concerned about. Because, I mean,
Ask them if they want it, they'll take it.
if they don't detect that your hands are on the steering wheel, so they won't let you keep on using the self-drive mode. But part of that is they have the control. So there's technically, if you put into the GPS that you want to drive, let's say, to a government building in Yerushalayim, and if Tesla decides they don't like that, they could say, nope, and just shut down your